Love podcasts, hate nonsense. It's the PoliticsJOE podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Charles, for the speech.
He read it monotone because that shows he doesn't have a political persuasion.
He had to make it sure he didn't show any enthusiasm for anything.
Oh God, he'd be terrible at doing that CBeebies, reading out of bedtime stories, that like Harry Styles and all of that do.
I wonder if he's ever done it.
Has Pedro Pascal ever done it? Because I'd like that.
Are you putting in a request to CBeebies?
I am, yeah.
Like a horny mother.
I'm not a mother.
No, but as in like, you can imagine somebody like, Jared Butler.
Jared Butler's probably done it. I know who I'd like.
Who?
Alec Baldwin.
Why? So he can do the Trump voice?
It's just been a while since he's looked down the lens.
Down a barrel. Anyway,
Right.
First King's speech from a Labour government in 15 years.
14 years.
15?
15?
Yeah, well, I got it wrong. I just wasn't backing down. Anyway.
Perhaps it is 15 years.
It's roughly between 13 and 16 years.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
I really want to talk about the railways, obviously, but we can delay that.
No. I would hate to.
I think what would be good to start is that with what has been continued, what has been kept on from the previous Conservative administration, and what has also been missed out by. Just lost my second bit of paper. I've written all that down. What has been missed out? So they've kept the cigarette bill. They're going to limit vape sales, and they're also going to...
And the progressive age raise of when you can buy cigarettes. How do you feel about that?
Tough day to be Philip Morris or British American Tobacco. Those guys, don't have it easy, do they?
Tough. Are you now... You were firmly against that.
Firmly
previously.
Against what?
That bill.
The smoking?
Yeah. No, you're not pro-smoking.
Oh, no, but that's only because I feel sorry for the shareholders.
You do nothing if not maximise shareholder value.
They're also going to limit the age limit, so high caffeine energy drinks to children, which is that's a very conservative policy. Very interventionist.
From 16?
They're going to raise it, yeah.
To 18?
I think they're going to have warnings on them as well.
I think...
Are you looking at me in disbelief, or you don't believe me?
No. Ava, fact check. No, I just think it's... Are you saying that Red Bull is the same as a pint?
It probably is, in terms of the damage that it does to you. I mean, should children really be drinking Red Bull at school? Probably not. But do I think that the government should mandate that? No, I don't.
Yeah.
In the same way that I don't think that there's a lot of things that I don't think children should be doing, but they do it.
Like?
Going to school.
Ava's quite anti-school. They also probably shouldn't be having vapes as well. They're not allowed to be honest, as well.
Well, they want to put the onus, don't they, onto the people who sell the vapes. And there was this really sort of evangelical, how can you possibly entrust the shopkeeper not to sell vapes to children? It was like, I think that is within their power.
Absolutely. Heavy fines.
Do
you think the shop... Question for you,
yeah.
Moral quandary. Should a shopkeeper who sells a vape to a 12-year-old go to prison?
Yes.
Interesting.
What do you think?
I don't think they should go to prison.
No. Okay.
They can argue about that.
Yeah. We'll leave that to them.
I'm looking forward to seeing how they extrapolate what I think.
I'm looking forward to them realising that I'm sort of like that the guy in Hunchback of Notre Dame who wants to throw everyone in prison.
Which, the villain?
The villain.
What's his name?
What is his name? Does anyone know?
Any Notre Dame heads?
The villain in Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know exactly. I can picture him. But...
Frodo?
Frollo.
Frollo?
Thank you.
Frollo, okay.
Not Frodo. Frodo's from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, God, I wouldn't know, would I?
Of course you would.
That's a bit more you.
It's not. I've actually famously never seen Lord of the Rings more than twice.
A couple of things that were missing in that bill. We didn't hear anything about votes for 16-year-olds.
That was interesting, wasn't it? A big... Do you think the conservative scaremongering is...
Sorry, I've just called that a bill, and someone will correct me. Sorry, in the King's speech. Excuse me.
I wonder why that is. Do you think it's not a priority for the country? So we're going to backpedal that?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
I thought it was I didn't think it was a particularly I don't think it should have been a priority anyway during the election campaign. I'd have to look at polling, but I can't imagine that it actually increased their vote share. Because those 16-year-olds can't vote.
But they're dying to.
Yeah.
They can just wait. They can wait like the rest of us, unless you're in Scotland.
There's certainly an argument for it because, at 16 you can do a number of things
definitely.
that are affected by government policy. Then I suppose that's also the same thing for like babies.
So they won't. So the Labour government would let 16-year-olds vote, but not celebrate with a Red Bull afterwards.
I guess so.
Or potentially have a cigarette to really take the burden off.
How would they get out of bed if they can't have a Red Bull in the morning?
Honestly. Do you like Red Bull?
No.
Yeah.
Do you?
Not really. I don't really like energy drinks.
One of us on this team can often, like every now and again, can be seen. Yeah.
Chugs down a Monster.
Enjoying a white Monster.
It's the most goth thing.
It's very goth. It's also really funny because it's the size of their head.
It's really funny.
Every time they pick it up, it makes me laugh because they look so strange. They have to two-hand it.
When I worked in a cafe in Glasgow, and as a barista, and in the morning you'd go in and you'd ask the kitchen team if they wanted coffee, and you'd make a coffee for them. And there was a kitchen porter who every time, bearing in mind it's 7:30 in the morning, he would say, "No, thank you, I'm sorted," and hold up his can of Monster, and he would just chain them all day. I was like, that is brutal.
It's so funny how there's sort of like the Venn diagram of like people who drink Monster and like also like going to that CEX store.
It's a circle.
It's a circle.
It's a circle.
Yeah.
We never see our colleague outside of CEX.
My colleague's always in there.
They're just buying those like anime dolls, like the wee statues. And selling games that they own for £10. It's not very lucrative because they're spending all their money on Monster.
Right. Is that the same cafe you worked in where you developed your dislike of egg mayo?
Different cafe.
Oh, right.
My two cafe experiences were quite formative.
Formative?
Yeah.
What do you think was the most formative part of it? Possibly the egg mayo thing.
Yeah, my test. I stopped drinking like cow's milk during it. Because I wasn't a great barista, so I was like burning a lot of milk when I was making coffee,
right.
which really I was like, that's disgusting. Time to have this oat milk.
There's someone who works in another part of Joe, at an adjacent brand, who's actually given themselves like a lactose issue because they haven't touched milk in so long.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
Maybe that'll happen to me.
No, they can't stomach it. They can't even eat cheese.
Oh, that's not happened to me yet.
It's quite funny.
That's a real shame.
Okay.
Was that addressed in the King's Speech?
What, the lactose thing? No, but do you know what was addressed? The Renters Reform Bill.
Yes.
Which is really, I think is really interesting. So let me just go through a couple of what will be within the Renters' Rights Bill. So they're going to abolish Section 21, no-fault evictions. The second point really interested me. Strengthening tenants' rights and protections. So they'll empower tenants to challenge rent increases designed to force them out by the back door and introduce new laws to end the practice of rental bidding wars by landlords and letting agents. Do you remember that Keir Starmer began talking about this at one of the leaders' debates? I think it was in York. And then he sort of backpedaled a bit because he basically almost gave away a policy.
Yep.
This is so interesting. The fight when you are negotiating, well, there is no negotiation. You go to look at a property along with 20 other people.
Yep.
And then the landlord sees that, by nature of supply and demand, they can keep pushing the rent up until someone, will pay the highest price.
But then it's also as well it's not even the landlords themselves, it's other renters who are desperate for somewhere to live.
And the agencies.
Yeah, definitely. And so you end up paying way over what the property's worth. And so then everyone lives in like a worse property than they can afford. And
it's also the knock-on effect of that, if your rent is pushed up an extra £200 a month, which is quite feasibly is, that's quite normal. It's about 5 to 10% of what the original price was. That means that those, when your salaries are so squeezed as they are anyway, especially in big cities, it means that money is now not going into the local pub or going into the local restaurant or, coffee shops or clothes shops. It has a really damaging effect on the wider economy.
When last time I went to a landlord convention, what I thought was really interesting was one landlord was saying he was getting out of the landlord game, and he wanted to get into the development of social housing. He thought that was the next way to make a ton of money.
Hashish.
Yeah, which I think, if given the house building targets, I think is actually pretty likely. I think it was quite. But then he wouldn't say it on camera because he didn't want everyone else to get the idea.
Right. He's not worried about the morality of that.
No. He was just like, yeah, no, I don't want everyone else to direct the idea.
Tenants are going to have the right to request a pet.
That's nice.
Yes. And then I was on, what website was I on just now, Sean? Was it Landlords Today or something? Landlords don't like that.
They're not?
No. They think it will make life very difficult for them.
Because the flat will smell of dog. Not only will it be mouldy and drafty, it will smell of dog.
Well, that's the thing about, if the flat is damp and then there's a dog, it'll get wet, and wet dog smells.
Wet dog smells?
Yeah.
What if it poos inside?
Well, presumably the tenant wouldn't want to live with dog shit around it.
No, here's the thing. Tenants are animals.
Right.
Tenants can't be trusted.
Okay.
And must be punished.
Yeah.
That's what a landlord would say.
Yes. And quite right. This is quite interesting. So Awar Bishak, who was that 2-year-old who died in Rochdale due to the damp and mould that was in their rental accommodation, they're bringing in a law, an eponymous law. There'll be clear legal expectations about the timeframes within which landlords must make homes safe where they contain serious hazards. I think they could have gone a little bit further there. I do not think that you should be allowed to rent out a property for £2,000 a month that has a low electricity rating. If it's just like bleeding heat and the tenant's having to pay for that, or it's wet,
yes,
or even like the washing machine is not working, I don't think that the landlord should be allowed to receive the full rent for that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think a lot of this stuff is kind of already covered in existing legislation. So it's about like they just need to be enforced.
Well, that's
properly.
That's what a lot of the housing groups talk about, isn't it? And that's actually what Mayor of London was talking about when he introduced these reforms. I think that he's still setting up these hubs. It's not that the legislation isn't there. It's that you don't have the salary to instruct a lawyer.
Yes, that's a good point, actually.
So that's why they wanted to have these legal hubs.
And people don't necessarily know about the rights that they do have. Like when I went to visit the student housing in Leeds, like these renters were 19, living the first time, not in halls, but in like a private rented place, probably for the first time for lots of them, and they actually didn't understand the rights that they had, who they could go to. They're like, the landlord's being rubbish.
Yeah.
And like, well, you could go to a tenants union, something like that. You could even go to university for advice of what to do, but they were like, people aren't aware of their rights as tenants.
Well, my sister had this.
Really?
Her kitchen ceiling fell in because it basically swelled with water from a leak, and then the whole thing fell in.
Jesus Christ.
And luckily she wasn't there, and she came back and was like,
Grr.
Mohammed, who's her upstairs neighbour, and she was looking directly at him. No, genuinely.
Jesus Christ. Grr Mondays.
Yeah, and I was like, you do not have to pay the rest of your tenancy. Like,
of course not.
You need to just get out now. Like, if you, and the landlord was like, no, unfortunately, you're going to have to see out your contract. It was like,
there's no our contract. So I understood our contract was for a flat with a ceiling, and that has been voided by the lack of there being a ceiling. So until the ceiling is repaired, then our contract resumes.
I would quite like any of these landlords, like that landlord in particular, to go to a hotel one night, say they're paying like £200 a night to stay in a hotel, and then not having a ceiling. Would he argue that his contract with the hotel for that night, his consumer contract, has been breached? Or would he say, well, look, they have provided a floor.
Here's a present for you, concierge.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd like them to have, when you go and like stay at a friend's and they're like, and hot water is just so difficult to kind of work out.
Yeah.
As in like, they're like, oh, it needs to be at this exact angle, otherwise it will be scalding hot. It is unsafe to get in that shower because your skin will peel off.
Yeah, that's how I like to shower normally, but yeah.
Oh, a painful shower.
Well, no pain, no...
Gain.
I don't feel clean unless I've been boiled like a lobster.
That's so interesting. Why is that?
I don't know.
Was there anything about that in the King's
Catholic,
speech?
Maybe?
I did think that, but then I thought it was maybe uncouth for me to suggest that.
No, it probably is something to do. Sean, how hot are your showers?
Warm, actually.
He's a warm shower.
Sean said warm. So maybe he's not Catholic.
Maybe he hasn't got a lot of guilt.
Maybe we can't attribute everything about you to being Catholic.
No. Not today.
Workers' rights. Been empowered.
Can I also just add this one last thing, which
Yes,
I
of
actually
course.
really like? It will be illegal for landlords to discriminate against tenants in receipt of benefits or with children. I think that's really interesting because most places you go, they'll say private landlord, no housing benefit. No, what difference does that money make to you?
Yep.
Where the money's coming from?
Snobbery, isn't it?
I mean, it's totally nuts that the local authority is handing over money to private landlords anyway. But what difference does it make to you?
I think it's a snobbery thing about people on benefits they believe stereotypes about people on benefits.
Well, they've got loads of pets, haven't they? That's probably the problem.
They get additional benefits because of their 10 ferrets that they keep, and none of the ferrets are trained.
That's the big difference between working class and middle class people is the ferrets.
How do you tell if someone's middle class? No ferrets
No
on their own.
ferrets, not one.
No. Would you like a pet ferret?
I don't know. Do you know that video of that guy that always comes up every now and again on BBC Archives that like has this ferret that runs in and out of its trousers?
No. So you'd like it if it did that? If it did tricks?
He walks over to the shed and he's like, hang on. And then he opens the door. He's fiddling about for a while and then he turns back around and he's like, ta-da. And it's like all these ferrets crawling up and down his trousers.
I don't think I'd like that.
I'll show you when we get
No, I'm
upstairs.
sorry. I'd love the video. I think the video. Very excited to see that.
You don't want ferrets in your trousers?
No. But me personally, that's the ferrets in my trousers.
No room, right?
Or my home.
Passenger railway services, public ownership bill,
Yeah, well, do you think we've done enough non-railway stuff for you?
nationalisation, is it?
How do you feel? You must have been beside yourself.
Well, it's nationalisation. What's already been happening is nationalisation by stealth, right? Because a number of operators have been brought under public control because they weren't able to fulfil their obligation to the public, and some of them are running fantastically now, like LNER. Beautiful service now, fantastic.
Love LNER.
Yeah.
Hate Avanti.
Well, she is close. She's edging onto.
Are train companies, like ships are female?
Yeah.
Are train companies female as well? Is that how we refer to them?
I don't know. Maybe they're they?
Maybe. We could ask each of them.
I don't know.
Next time you're on a train, ask the guard.
Is it like a ship or a country?
Yeah.
That's she.
We should. What does everyone else think, audience?
Why do you think that? Do you think trains are like? Do trains have like a masculine energy or something?
I don't know.
Traditional.
Well, I would
mask?
say it actually. I wouldn't gender them necessarily. That'd be my instinct.
Well, that maybe maybe that was my problem.
This bill, I think maybe sums up the problem that Starmer might run into, that he's already heading towards after the honeymoon period is over. England lost the final. Southgate is gone. It will. So these contracts are going to expire over the next little while.
There's 30 years is the max.
Yes. So 30 years. Some trains are still just going to be shit and expensive, and people will still be like, "Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing more?" They're not. I think people have an appetite for radical change, especially with something like that, because I think every time I've looked up a train ticket recently, I've been like, Jesus fucking Christ, that's insane. That price.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually said bargain in a while.
No, I saw a ticket yesterday, the day before. I got notifications like tickets from London to Glasgow were £35. But I was leaving at 5:30 in the morning, which is no good at all. Because I don't want to get that train.
I wouldn't mind that train. I'd know no one would be on there talking to me. The problem is the rolling stock as well, which has not been addressed.
Yes.
Most of our trains are leased from European companies, and they, it's foreign landlords essentially owning the trains that we use, and all of that money gets funneled back out. So none of that money gets reinvested into the railway. So they're just the entire system's a total drain. And okay, so even in their little in their background information here that Labour have provided, they say 54% of people are in favour of nationalising the railway. That was an Ipsos poll in May. Do it. Nationalise the water. Nationalise the rail. Because the way that most of them work is that they'll be paired with a profitable railway will be paired with a non-profit making railway. So, like for example, your favourite one, Great Western Railway, that'll be twinned with, say, like a local service that maybe is in, like, I don't know, does the outskirts of Boston or around Birmingham, commuter trains.
Yep.
But they're twinned because one's a really profitable one. If you have a full nationalisation programme, then that would mean that pot doesn't have to just be limited to twinning.
Yep. It
can just be shared out and divvied out amongst the country.
A rising tide lifts all trains.
Yes.
Yes, was there anything else that... There was 40 bills in this speech. Absolutely crammed them in.
Yeah, there's no way that they're going to have recess, I don't think.
Do you not think so?
I'm getting increasingly sceptical that we're going to have a recess.
Would you like a recess?
I would like a recess. I think it's smart not to use your first 100, because you're measured, the metric is your first 100 days, right? And no one's going to go, well, the election was in July and he didn't get most of August because it was in recess. He's always going to be measured by that metric.
And then also as well, all your new MPs, they're going to be taken out of that environment, which they're just getting to know the system, and having that break probably isn't terribly useful use of their time.
They also do get 3 weeks off for conference season. Like conference season, they're
off all the time.
They are off all the time. Like they'd be working potentially 4-5 days out of those. I think it's a month actually you get off for conference season, because presumably the new Labour intake aren't going to the Lib Dem and Tory conferences.
I'd be very surprised if they were.
I'm looking forward to Reform's conference. Are you?
Oh, that would be good. I'd quite like to go to that.
Well, look, I'll see what I can do for you.
Will you get me in?
I'll have a go.
Would you? I think actually all the conferences are more appetising than usual. I think Lib Dem would be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
To go to, even Green.
Did you read in the Fence that the Lib Dem is the most sexually charged conference?
Really?
Yeah.
How is that measured?
Anecdotally, I guess.
The author had sex there.
Yeah.
I've got laid more at the Lib Dem conference than the rest of them combined. One time.
Actually, I don't know if it was sexually charged. I think they said horniest.
I think they're all quite horny, to be fair. Just like young political nerds meeting others for the first time.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to find that wherever they're from.
Confirm VAT on private schools.
Yes, I thought it kind of made me laugh. King Charles talking about that, as if like just the emblem of like the upper crust of Britain, talking about something like he sent his children to private school, if not the VAT being included in the fees, but not to have made a dent on the impact on his ability to send Harry and William there.
Imagine how progressive it would be if you sent one of those children, the royal children, to like just a state school.
I was thinking about that. I wonder why there's not a clamour for it.
Yeah.
Like our state education, like because politically, like prime ministers should send their children to state schools, and it'd be kind of appalling if they didn't.
Blair did, didn't he?
Yes, but it was like he sent it to the oratory school, which is like the best state school in the country. Like,
no, I know because, I know people who teach there.
Oh, really?
And it is very posh.
But then, why is the state education system not good enough for the royal family? And if it's not, should you not be trying to make it so good that the royal family are like, we want in? Or should the royal family be compelled to send their children to a state school?
There'll just be someone whining in the comments like, they can't go to a state school, it wouldn't be safe. Well, why isn't it safe?
You can make it safe.
And also, why are they that precious? I don't like... Since we're on it, what value add did we have from King Charles reading out that speech today? I could have heard all of that from the Speaker of the House or from Keir Starmer himself. I don't really know why he needed to like turn up in his nice little cloak And although Camilla looked great.
You're a hard pivot. Anti-Charles, pro-Camilla.
Yeah, I've really changed my mind on her. In
Would you
years.
like if she was like queen in her own right?
I don't care.
You don't care?
I don't care. No.
Okay.
But I just thought she looked. I actually think she's really changed. Yeah, I've changed my mind on her.
I suppose if we are playing within the system of the British Constitution, he does need to do it because it's all done in his name.
I reckon she's really good fun.
Camilla. Do you think so?
Yeah.
Would you like to go on a night out with her?
No, not a night out, but I would definitely like to sit in, like, I don't know, what do they do, the parlour or something?
And play parlour games?
No, not even that. I'd like to just gossip with her. I reckon she sits down, she's like, she'll tell you which maid is shagging which maid. Like, you know, she'd have all, like, the gossip about Balmoral. You know what I mean? She'd be like, well, the huntsman knocked up the maid, didn't he? And that's why the silverware's all fingerprinted.
Are we living in the 19th century? That was like something like...
Well, we are if they're still in charge.
Very good.
Hereditary peers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Remove right of hereditary peers to sit in the House of
you
Lords.
because you were hoping to sit in the House of Lords soon, weren't you?
Yes, because my father is the...
Lord of Glasgow.
I wonder if there is one.
The Duchy of Aberdeen.
Yes. I'm not from Aberdeen and reject any such accusation.
Mm.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? And they haven't gone as far as to have an upper age limit for peers.
Yes, they didn't do that, did they?
Because I wonder if... It's interesting because you have to play within the logic of the system. Like, if the system says these people are appointed to life. I wonder if there's stuff about, like, was Alf Dubs, they were like, you mean that you do realise that he will have to be ejected, but Evgeny Lebedev gets to stay. They're like, okay. Maybe we'll just...
Tricky.
Tricky,
this one.
Get rid of them all.
Yeah, Ken Clarke as well.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have an upper age limit in politics in general.
You wonder if there could be some sort of like driving test adjacent. Do you know what I mean?
Like a cognitive test?
Well, yeah. Like they do they sit down and have to do that like non-verbal, verbal reasoning.
It's, can you sit in the session? If you fall asleep during a session, you're out, surely.
Yeah, but I don't know if I might fall asleep.
Okay, but then you would also be out. I think that's fine.
Yeah, the Lords wouldn't be fine.
I think being a parliamentarian is a serious enough business that you should be able to be awake for it.
That's the take, ladies and gentlemen.
And I think if you personally don't think you would be able to do that, I would not want you to be a parliamentarian either.
Well, I don't think anyone would want me to be a parliamentarian.
I think you'd be...
And I don't think it's anything to do with me falling asleep.
it's your hang 'em and flog 'em policy.
Yeah. Everyone's in prison.
Waiters, shopkeepers, everyone is getting hung, drawn and quartered.
You know what's getting hung, drawn and quartered?
No.
Those NIMBYs.
Are they?
It's so over for them.
They're hanging them? What the fuck?
Local planning laws.
Yes.
Local residents will not be able to just say no, which they have been doing for quite some time.
Do you know who's going to be absolutely raging?
Who will be absolutely raging?
Adrian Ramsey.
Yeah, of course he will be.
He's going to be absolutely fucking beside himself.
Adrian Ramsey, co-leader of the Green Party. They've had a tricky time actually over the past couple of days, haven't they? We'll get on to the other one in a minute. But Adrian Ramsey, who you would think the purveyor of all things green.
Yep.
Not so happy about a couple of pylons that are going to go from Essex to Norfolk. It's the only way that you can transport this renewable energy. And he's like, nope, I'm afraid no. And then the alternate option that they've said no to the pylons.
Yep.
And what we discovered today, I don't know if you were at the desk, but the pylons don't actually look, they're nowhere near as ugly as they used to be.
Oh.
Pylons are quite sleek now.
What are they? Talk me through them.
Well, they actually look like a coil. They actually do.
Like the coil.
The coil.
Right.
Have you ever seen one of them?
I think so.
Why? How would you have seen one?
How would I have seen anything? I don't know.
They're sort of like this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Doesn't that look like a coil?
Good drawing. Everyone comment good drawing, Ava.
Thank you.
This is art tech.
Anyway, so what they want instead is they want them to drill underground and put all of the cables there. And it's like, okay, in principle, sure. But if you're making the environmental argument that it might disturb the wildlife to have pylons there, drilling, probably going to be pretty bad for those natural habitats. Secondly, if there's going to be any maintenance work done on those underground cables, that's going to be extremely expensive. Thirdly, it's extremely expensive to drill anyway and put them underneath there. And what I want to know is, the local residents who are so concerned about it, why haven't you offered to stump up any of your own cash to help pay to put it underground? You know, we're in a situation right now where the 2-child benefit cap has not been lifted by Labour today. And they've said it's because the country is broke and it would cost something like £3 billion. I'm not an engineer. I think it would be pretty expensive to put those wires underground.
Yep.
Those local residents, it's like, listen.
I don't think the answer to that is getting people to fund state projects out their
But it's
pocket.
not a state project because the state project's being paid for.
Sorry, if the alternative was, if your solution to that is the people who object should be forced to pay out of their own pocket.
But why should they object? It's like,
I agree they shouldn't
have to go somewhere.
Yeah, no, I agree they shouldn't object, but I don't think they should be.
And I just think that, you know,
They
I
should
think
be made to pay for it.
Objecting to local planning regulation, I really think, is a preserve of the wealthy and a preserve of the asset class, because most people in this country do not get to object to things like this. If I wake up one morning and I see that Virgin Media have turned the entire street upside down in front of me to put in a gas pipe, I wasn't consulted on that. I don't get to object to that. It just happens. And that, you know, that's the same for many estates and, you know, lower middle class households all over this country. But if you're
renters,
if you've got time, also, you know, primarily if you're not time impoverished like most workers are, and you can sit around looking at plans all day, why should you get more say in it?
Yeah, there's the luxury of time or owning your, because you're concerned about house prices, aren't you? You're concerned about the value of your home going down. Like, I got a letter in the post the other day, and it was a planning thing. I barely read it, to be perfectly honest. I was like, well, it's not my flat. It's not going to affect me.
Why would you care? Oh, there's a planning application at the moment for me. They want to. There's 2 rooms at the top of the flats that are being used as an office, and they have to get planning permission to turn it into a flat. It's gone to consultation. It's that sort of thing that makes me want to smash my head
firmly
on the desk.
You're firmly against that.
Let me just talk about these local residents who are going to lose their bid to block housing, right? 15 local planning authorities have refused at least 1 in 2 planning submissions for residential developments last year, 80% of which were either in London, the South East or the East of England. Mole Valley and Surrey had the highest number of refusals for major new housing developments, with 77% of decisions refused.
Holy shit.
77%. There are 15 local authorities who take the top spot for the most YIMBY areas in the UK, approving 100% of all major development applications. And then that'll be places like, God, I don't want to say one that is not on the list, but I presume it will be places like Coventry, who the local MPs there are really keen to get in industry. Like, that huge Amazon warehouse went up there not so long ago, and they were really proud of it. And then they've built loads of houses all around it. I'm not being pro Amazon, just to let you know, just pointing it out. Anyway, I just don't think that you should be able to point blank refuse the development because you're worried about your house price. Tough shit.
Absolutely. Eat it.
Eat it.
Do you know who else is going to have to eat it?
Who?
Some football clubs.
Yeah?
Absolutely. The football governance bill, which has cross-party support, I think the Conservative government were going to bring it in, but kind of fell by the wayside when they called the election. The government has committed to bringing in an independent football regulator and giving more power to football fans in this country. And also in the Labour manifesto, they basically said they would never let any English clubs leave and join a Super League. And I think it's interesting that they didn't talk about specifically state ownership of football clubs in the speech, maybe diplomatically as well, because representatives from the state would probably, like, the Saudi ambassador was probably there. It's interesting because I think the view... Oh,
do you mean like the what about preventing foreign ownership?
Yes, or like a state owning a football club.
Right.
And the fitness of people to own football clubs and stuff like that. And I think there's an interesting tension, and I wonder how and if it will come to a head between the owners and international fans of English football clubs versus the kind of the local crowd, match-going crowd, who might eventually be priced out of it, because there is concerns that I saw in one fan group a concern about what if the Premier League decided that for 2 weeks in a Premier League season they decided to play 2 games in Saudi Arabia. Would they be allowed to do that? Would they just decide that?
Would they be allowed to do that? Seriously?
I think you see the NFL plays games at.
Are those
Spurs.
legitimate games?
Yeah, I think so.
I thought they were just like playing or practicing.
No, I'm pretty sure that's during the NFL season.
I thought they were just doing like a little theatre production.
No. I think those games, and then so they're concerned about like actual meaningful games
nuts.
being played in Texas, and so like Arsenal, for instance, owned by American owners, or Liverpool owned by say people who own the Boston Red Sox. They would have every financial interest in taking like Liverpool to go and see, like, to be played in Boston. Which
of course, and they could charge like $250 a ticket.
Yeah,
and so, people would pay it.
and I think they probably, those clubs, the big clubs, resent the kind of the financial responsibility they have for the rest of the football pyramid to kind of like trickle down. And when you see like clubs like Bury don't exist anymore, which is gutting for the local areas, gutting for communities. And it'd be interesting to see if they go further on this, if they manage to take on irresponsible ownership of these places.
Would you like that?
I think so. It's interesting because I don't support an English team, and my favourite thing about Scottish football is how repellent it is to outside investment, because I think a company would lose money if they invested in like Motherwell.
Really?
I think like it's such an unattractive commercial prospect.
What about like Dundee?
Same. I actually think it's really unattractive. Like, if you say Sweden or Denmark invested in a football club, I actually think the reputation would deteriorate to like rogue state. I think it would be like a drain on their reputation.
Really?
Yes, I think it's that bad.
Gosh, you're very patriotic.
I am being facetious, but I do think it's just like the level of attendance in Scottish football isn't anywhere near as high as in England. It's not as like only Celtic and Rangers really win anything, so there isn't necessarily and it's also not as these clubs aren't as, they're not brands like the big English clubs. The Premier League isn't a brand. The Scottish Premiership isn't a brand in the same way the Premier League is.
The EFL.
The EFL. So I think it's such an unattractive commercial prospect.
I've realised that people do call it the EFL here, but did you find when you were living in America, people would be like, "Are you watching the EFL?"
The EPL.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
No. Like literally like English Football League or something. And I'd be like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean?"
What do you think as a Everton fan that's been in crisis?
I don't know.
That's fair.
I have to phone the boys at Peckham Town and see what they think about it. The only football club I really care about.
Is it?
I love Peckham Town.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't really have any strong opinions about it, to be perfectly honest.
I think there's something really fun about being able to... You actually watch a lot of football when you go to those sort of games.
Yeah, definitely.
You get a whole load of goals.
Yeah, because it's interesting because like the quality of the standard of football is so dreadful.
But because you're so much closer to your pitch side, it's good football.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
When you go to watch it, I don't know. Yeah, the standard is different because the standard is equal amongst all of them. You can't really notice.
English devolution, greater powers to Metro mayors.
So interesting that, isn't it? I actually think that we should do an entire podcast on that.
On Metro mayors. I think
we should get someone in who knows what they're talking about.
Apart from us.
Huh?
Apart from us.
Laura.
we should get Gordon Brown in. What I think was interesting is, like, politically for Keir Starmer, I think, like, this is a good thing in general, but it's interesting for Keir Starmer, you're giving more powers to someone like Andy Burnham, who is almost proposing like a different version of Labour to you.
Well, he's also twinning it with like it's a lot of it is to do with like local services, right? So there's this buses bill as well that's going to be introduced, and that's about it makes total sense that central government is not able to understand the demands of like constituencies that are hundreds of miles away. What bus routes they need. It makes total sense to devolve that power onto them.
Definitely. But I just think politically it's an interesting move in case Andy Burnham ever decided to come for the king.
Well, if you look at like the Greater London Authority, which actually has a lot of devolved power already. Well, not devolved power, but it does have devolved budget, and it can do things like when it wanted to provide the free school meals to primary school children, it was able to afford that and able to do that.
Yep.
Or when Sadiq Khan decides that he wants to freeze fares, he can do that. Like, it's within his remit. Giving that power to other major cities, that does make total sense to me.
It's interesting, when all the Metro mayors came to visit Downing Street, was that in his first week? It was like first or second day, and he made special. He timed by himself with Ben Houchen, didn't he? He was treated especially.
Well, Ben Houchen's got the Freeport. I wonder what you see. Then you think about things like that, and you think about the transparent. Well, but then that was still centralised, that power, when they opened that Freeport, and that Freeport has been shrouded in controversy. You wonder how, like, will it make processes more opaque?
Yes, that is interesting, actually. Like, maybe the powers won't be used for good.
Yeah, they'll just be used for Freeports.
They're turning actually Teesside into a Freeport. They're going to ban conversion therapy, which the Conservatives promised in 2019.
Yeah, why did the Conservatives never deliver on that?
I think it was like...
It became a political football, didn't it?
I think it became like, once like national conservatism became like bigger, like more of a movement. You got people in that kind of wing talking about like free choice and like freedom of religion, I suppose. I think that's a good one.
Yes.
To pursue ban conversion therapy.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you will get people being like, well, what if someone wants it?
Well, I don't... That's sort of like, I don't know, euthanasia.
But then it's cruel. And it's more like someone shouldn't be able to practice it.
Yes. That's a good angle.
The service should absolutely not be provided by some
that's very true.
homophobic grifter.
Yes.
We're anti-homophobic grifters.
Are we? Is that the official?
I think so.
Of the podcast?
I personally am.
Do you think we should ring Ollie up and check? Should we just make sure?
Just checking our line on homophobic grifters.
Where are we on the conversion therapy?
We're having a vote. It's split down the middle. We need you to just cast the deciding vote.
How disappointing for Sunak that his legacy will be not bothering to implement conversion therapy.
What is his legacy?
Ban conversion therapy.
Did he do anything?
Well, he did furlough, didn't he?
No, but as Prime Minister.
He cancelled HS2.
Cancelled HS2. Even his new A-levels.
Yeah, what happened to those?
Presumably not going ahead.
And now Keir's going to get the smoking ban.
Yep.
He didn't even enact Martin's Law. He was supposed to do that before
on
Parliament.
The day.
Yeah. Figan Murray who's the mother of Martin. Martin was killed during the Manchester bombing. She was in the public gallery, wasn't she? She was actually watching the Prime Minister's questions. To not honour her by pushing that through. Because also the timing of that election, there was definitely a few loose ends that needed to be tied up in terms of legislation. They simply ran out of parliamentary time, right? There was no reason why he had to suspend the House that day.
Yep.
He could have actually, to get the date that he wanted, which was 4th of July, I think I'm right in saying he could have suspended the House the following Thursday. Because we had a longer than usual election, didn't we?
It's interesting, isn't it? I think...
Like, if he actually gave a damn, is what I'm saying, he could have delayed proroguing.
It's interesting that I've seen criticism of Martin's Law. And so Martin's Law is, I think it's venues over 100 or 150 capacity now have to have anti-terror training. All staff have to do. And lots of people, and I've seen some people say that all this is going to do is put costs onto small businesses that are not going to be supported. And it's interesting, isn't it, that we put a tragedy happens, someone related to that tragedy comes up with, they want to do something in memory of that person, and it is a lot. Sometimes it's legislation, which is interesting, when they themselves might not be best placed to come up with policy.
I guess it's sort of like how in American schools they have to do shooter training, don't they?
Yes, but I think
no, but I'm not saying I'm pro that.
No, but the difference is a school in America is much more likely to be shot up than a village hall in Kent.
I don't know though. It does seem that you should have, especially for, I mean, the large venues, it goes without saying, but the small, it does feel like you should have pretty solid training for staff who are in small venues.
Yeah.
Like, think about what happened on in Broadway Market. It was Broadway Market, wasn't it? When there was that terror attack. Like, think about that. If the staff don't know where the proper exits are, or they don't know how to, do you send people out? Do you lock the doors? It does feel to me like you should have some sort of briefing on that.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, maybe. But it's interesting. Like we like there is this expectation of a tragedy happened to this person, and therefore what they want, their legislation needs to be. We need to take the word as gospel, almost. Like, even like Brianna Jai's mother wants to, like,
I see what you're saying.
Like, Brianna Jai's mother wants to, I think is it ban
she doesn't want
social media for under
16s,
16s,
yeah.
Which the people who killed her daughter, they were radicalized on the dark web.
Yeah.
It really wasn't, social media didn't radicalize them.
Yeah.
And I completely understand the instinct and empathize with it wholeheartedly of, like, wanting to do something. I completely get it. I think it's a human reaction. But I'm not sure that person is always the person the tragedies happen to is best placed to just come up with a policy.
I'm so with you.
Yeah.
I'm so with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. You shouldn't. Should you be the arbiter of the legislation, or should you just be the ambassador?
Because actually it's very difficult politically to disagree with them as well.
Yeah.
Even the way the Martin's law stuff is framed with Sunak, it's Sunak Martin Hett's mother was in Parliament on day that he abandoned legislation. How could he do this to this woman? Whereas if it was a pressure group or something that introduced this legislation, or a think tank, it wouldn't necessarily be framed in that way.
With Brianna Jai, there is the MPs as well that came out to support or to speak on what her mother wanted to do, which was to ban social media for under 16s, had also said some pretty heinous things about the existence of trans people. That cognitive
dissonance
is interesting there.
It is interesting. Hillsborough.
Yeah, Hillsborough.
They're delivering a manifesto commitment to place a legal duty of candour on public servants and authorities, addressing the unacceptable defensive culture prevalent across too much of the public sector. I think that's very interesting. In terms of, you looked at like the COVID inquiry, it just seemed like people were defending themselves. They weren't that interested in establishing the truth. It was like reputation laundering.
For Hillsborough?
COVID inquiry is what I meant.
Oh.
But then also it does apply to Hillsborough as well. It's like it took so long to get to the bottom of it.
Hang on, I'm just trying to actually just look and see what it actually means.
Duty of candour.
Unacceptable. So it'll address the unacceptable defensive culture prevalent across too much of the public sector.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting, isn't it? It's the post office stuff too, then, isn't it?
Yeah. So you're obliged to be fully truthful, like, which I suppose they swear an oath anyway. I guess they are supposed to tell the truth.
Well, you would hope, wouldn't you?
That's interesting as well, isn't it? It's like you are supposed to do this.
I think that one thing that really, really winds me up is when there's an open inquiry and whoever is you're attempting to hold to account can say, well, we have to wait for the results of the inquiry. I hate that. Makes me so angry.
Yeah.
Why have you taken the interview slot?
It is annoying.
Yeah.
It's quite annoying interviewing those more like formal political interviews. Like, unless it's like a prearranged thing to come here. If it's like we're here to talk about this issue, I find them quite unsatisfying.
I wonder how Michael Gove's feeling today, knowing that his renters reform bill went ahead, is going to go ahead.
Proud. Job well done, pal.
Isn't that mad? So they've done all of the graft, all of the, well, actually it's the same policy unit, isn't it? Technically civil servants and that. But still, he spent years talking about this renters reform bill and the leasehold reform bill. Yep. And then Labour just come in and get it done. Yeah. Why didn't Sunak get any of it done? It's actually nuts. It was a ghost parliament, wasn't it, for a good 4 or 5 months? They just did nothing.
They did nothing.
Maybe we should have an inquiry about that. What the hell were you doing? Should we put them in prison?
We're going to hang and flog the Conservative government. Should we briefly touch on Northern Ireland?
Yeah. Or we should...
I think we should mention it, at least.
Yeah.
Just going to replace the Legacy Act, in particular the sections which have been most vehemently opposed by victims and survivors of the Troubles, which I didn't realise.
Johnny Mercer screaming.
Johnny Mercer screaming. I didn't realise. When the UK passed this law, they acted unilaterally, and every single party in Northern Ireland opposed it. So it seems sensible to maybe be like, we're going to undo this, chaps.
Yeah, well,
apologies about that.
And Keir Starmer was saying things like in the last couple of weeks, like, we are going to work with representatives. And it's like, yes. Yeah. It would seem it would have been good to go out to consultation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the ECHR, not in the... that's staying in, isn't it? Staying in that.
God.
Looks like that Good Friday agreement's going to stay intact.
That's good news, isn't it?
Pro or con?
We have to ask Ollie about that as well.
We'll let you know the official position.
We're going to have a manifesto of things about anything we haven't said explicitly for. We are jury's out still.
Okay.
So they need to make a list of things that we're not explicitly against.
Yeah.
I think that'll go well for us.
Okay, good. Look forward to it.
But remember, we are against nonsense.
Well, the jury's still out on that, isn't it?
No, it's not. We say for you, actually, yes.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a condition of your employment, or it should be a condition of your employment that you come out?
I don't know. Why don't you throw me in prison?
You'd like that.
Why don't you give me a nut?
I'd kill you, then I should get off of the suspended sentence.
Yes.
That's my dream. I should walk free. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the PoliticsJOE podcast. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Rate us. Leave us a review if you can.
Yeah, rate us 1 to
Somewhere.
10.
Rate how hot we are. Don't do that. Yeah, thank you for listening. We'll see you all in the next one.
What
Bye-bye.
are you rating us?
8 to 0 out of 10.
Thank
10
you.
being the hottest.
How creative of you.
I said it.
Connor
Wow.
from Gay Star News just rated us in person.
No, we could have. We should have lied about who that was.
Sorry, I mean Alexa Chung. Friend of listeners, Alexa Chung has been sitting beside us for every single episode of the PoliticsJOE podcast in silence, rating our outfits.
Has she?
Yeah. Did you not know this?
Alexa, who can you rate our outfits today?
8 to 0 out of 10.
No, don't just if you like.
Alexa's voice is much deeper than I expected.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for listening. Bye bye.
God, she sounds hungry.
Hungry.